Hello everyone. So I'm making this video to discuss the concept of justice. Now, I think it's a very interesting concept, and it is also a story that we tell ourselves. And of course, it's a story with important implications and ramifications that has a very high chance to mislead us. So that's why it's important to discuss it, to understand it, to become cognizant of it. Because in some way it's through awareness. So we have those stories that usually exist in our unconscious, and we confuse them for realities. So we forget that they are stories, or we never knew in first place. Those are conditioning. So those are things we acquire without knowing that they are not, let's say, facts. They are just stories, but they become part of our reality. And so they have deep implications, because if you have an assumption that is false, that's going to have deep implications in the way you see the world, in the decisions you make, etc. So there is this idea of justice. Now, I'm not talking about human justice, which is different. So human justice, like let's say the court system and the fact that a judge is going to decide what is right and what is wrong, this justice is different. So the reason human justice exists is basically to keep the society united. So before, probably a long time ago, there was only private revenge. So if someone from a tribe hurt someone from another tribe, there was some kind of revenge expected. And if someone does something bad, and still probably there was some kind of council of the elders that will decide what to do. So even then, because the base, let's say the most simple state is just revenge. So someone hurts you, you hurt them. So you kind of settle the score. But the risk of this is that this could create disunity. It could create separation. It will not keep that society united. So this is the problem with this approach. So justice gets created to basically settle the issues while keeping the society united. So two individuals within a certain society have an issue, but instead of killing each other or killing each other's families, they will go to the court. The judge will look at the case and decide, and ideally they will both accept the outcome. So they may not like the outcome, but they may still accept it as fair. For example, they can say, well, yeah, I don't like the outcome, but the process that was followed is fair. So they agree on the process, and then that's fine. So this will not separate the society into. So the society has to stay united in order to be strong. So justice is created to keep the society united. So this is the human justice. But a lot of people believe that there is another form of justice, maybe some justice of the universe or whatever. Now, but let's look at this first. So initially, there is the idea of God. And of course, every religion has a different view about God. But in some way, the gods are not so different. So they usually have agency, meaning that they make decisions. So they are agents themselves, that they can make decisions based on their preference. So let's say the Christian God is going to look like, did we follow the 10 Commandments? Did we sin? Did we not sin? How much did we pray? Did we have faith? There are certain rules. And I assume, based on the religion, the idea is that the more you follow those rules, the more God is going to like you. But God, I'm not an expert in Christianity, but I'm assuming that the idea is that God will send you to heaven if he likes you, and he will send you to hell if he doesn't like you. Now, this is very important. So the God with agency has discretionality, meaning that he gets to choose. He's not following a set of rules where he's obligated to do certain things. He can choose. Of course, he has an idea of what he's going to choose. He knows, because he knows his preferences. And so the rules allegedly are made by him. So he kind of indicates what he prefers, but he's still free to choose. So maybe you did some sins, but maybe he will still send you to heaven. Or maybe you didn't do certain sins, but maybe he will still send you to hell. So God has discretionality, he's an agent. He has free will. He can make decisions. So this is the agent God. And the agent God, very similar to the parents. So at the end of the day, when we are children, our parents appear to us as gods because they are much more powerful than us. They have agency and they can reward or punish us. And so we get conditioned to this model that there is a being that has the power to reward and punish based on liking, and this being has agency and can also freely decide if to reward or punish. He doesn't have to follow certain rules. He's free to decide. He has agency. So as we grow up, we replace the parent figure with God. So when we are children, we see the parents as a kind of God. They can never be wrong. They have ultimate power. They are agents. They are free to decide. They give us some rules, but they don't have to decide exclusively based on those rules. They may like some kid more and another kid less. They have discretionality, they have agency, and they have the power to reward and punish. And then once we grow up, we kind of imagine that God is similar. So as adults, we imagine that God is similar to our parents. He's an agent, he has discretionality, he can like more or less, he gives certain rules, he prefers certain behaviors to others, and based on all this, he freely decides if to reward or punish. He's very similar to the parents. But why? Why are we looking for this? I believe that the reason is we are seeking protection. So when we go around in the world, there is just so much uncertainty. I mean, we could at any time, there could be an earthquake and we die. So there is some sort of desire, some sort of expectation, some sort of hope maybe for safety, for protection. We will rather be more in control of what is happening than less. We would rather know that we are not going to die in an earthquake, that our plane is not going to crash, because we know that those things are completely unpredictable. No one can predict which plane is going to crash or when there is going to be an earthquake. So it can feel very fearful. It's like it can feel very scary. Like, oh my God, at any time I could die or I could get cancer or something terrible could happen. So we look for some sort of protection. And in some way, when we are children, we expect our parents to protect us from the outside environment. And that's usually what parents do, even in animals. So the adult members of the pack or the group of animals, they will protect the young, not only the parents, but all the group, if they live in groups like wolves or lions or whatever, the elephants, they will protect their young. So the young will see the adults as some sort of gods. They protect them, they tell them what they should do, and they can reward or punish. But once we become adult, we miss that figure that protects us. So we can look at this figure in God. God becomes similar to our parents and he protects us. So the main reason is protection. Now, of course, the protection can come at certain conditions. So we are going to be protected only if we do certain things. Just like when we are kids, if we are good kids, then we can expect protections. If we are bad kids, then we may not expect, maybe not as much protection. We may receive less protection. Or at some point, our parents may give up on us. They may say, oh, this child is a disaster, he's always doing crazy stuff, I've lost hope, and at some point the parents may give up. Or not, depends. But once we become adult, then our parents are not there to protect us. And also the potential threats are much bigger, like a plane crash, an earthquake. Those are much bigger threat than maybe another kid bullying us. Or, I don't know, some simple issue that the parents can solve. Or someone need to help us with the homework. So we look for this in God. But then some people, of course, at some point stop believing in God. Some continue believing, some stop believing, or some have different ideas of God. They can change their idea of what God is. But even if you don't believe in God, so let's say you drop the belief in God, you may still believe in something very, very similar. You may still believe in the idea of justice. So what is the idea of justice? The idea of justice is kind of similar to the idea of God, but it's more an idea of a God without agency. So in the classical idea of God, God has agency. He's an agent and he acts based on his preference and he's free to act and he can freely reward or punish. So this is a God with agency. But the idea of justice, the idea that there is some kind of justice in the universe, is actually very similar to the idea of God, just that we have removed the agency. So it's not an individual, an entity that has preference and that thinks and decides. It's more like some sort of magical environment where if you do good stuff, maybe you will be protected. You will be rewarded. If you do bad stuff, you will be punished. Something bad will happen to you. It's a little bit similar to the idea of karma, for example. But it doesn't even have to be karma. It's like in general, the idea of justice means that, yes, this guy, he got cancer, but I'm a good guy. I will not get cancer. There is justice in the universe. So by being a good guy, I'm basically protecting myself. So it's not the God, the agent God, that is protecting me because he likes me, because I follow the rules, but it's more like if there is a justice, then by doing good things, by being a good guy, I am protecting myself. And the bad things that happen to others, they will not happen to me. I mean, they happen to others probably because they are bad guys. They did bad things. And if you really cannot find anything that they did bad, then you can always say that maybe they did something bad in a previous life. Why not? I mean, but you will kind of have to reconcile what happens with this idea of justice. But this idea of justice, also a story, is the story that the universe must be like that. But why? I mean, we can clearly understand the motivation. The motivation why we are seeking for this justice to exist is to feel protected, is to feel safe. That's why we came up with the idea of justice, because it will feel very scary if there was no justice. Because if there is no justice, it means you have no control at all over what is going to happen to you. You can be a good guy as much as you want, but it doesn't mean you will not be in the earthquake, your plane will not crash, or you will not get cancer. And if you're a bad guy, you may very well not die in the earthquake. Your plane may very well not crash, and you may very well not get cancer. Now, this could look scary. It's like, oh, so I have no control. Not only there is no one, as in the parents or God, but there is also nothing to protect me. Anything could happen. I have no control. So it's no surprise that we seek for this justice to exist, because it makes the world look a lot less scary. Without this justice, the world looked much more scary, because anything could happen, and we have absolutely no control over what could happen. So we come up with this idea, justice. Justice as God without agency, a mechanical system without agency that kind of compensates things. Good things will lead to being protected, and bad things will lead to not being protected. You can kind of buy your protection. Doing good things is kind of an insurance policy. You get protection. And if you don't do good things, then you are taking chances. You may not get the protection, but at least you have an idea of control. You can influence outcomes. You can control what's going on. It's not just completely random and unpredictable. So it's obvious why we are seeking for this justice, because it gives us the protection. But beside the desire, the fact that we really wish it was true, what elements do we have to believe that it is actually true? So let's look at the facts. So there is the Big Bang, the initial cause, and from this initial cause, there are many consequences, and every consequence produces another consequence till today. So where exactly does this justice fit? So this justice will imply either, if there is a God, that there is this single agent that has agency, and that could fork into the reality. So there is this chain of consequence, and then let's say there is the normal event that should have happened is that this plane where the good guy is crash, but the God with his agency is going to fork to change the chain of causality to make it so the plane with the good guy does not crash. Now the problem is you have to do this a lot. So because there are a lot of good guys and bad guys everywhere and a lot of events, so you may have to fork, let's say, the universe and many times. So it can get very tricky to do that with the case of the God. And even if you remove the God, you still should have this mechanism for compensation that kind of check, well, this guy did the good thing, so he gets some kind of protection, and so the plane where he's in should not crash. But plane crash for causal reasons. So maybe there was some malfunction, because there is always a cause. So if the plane crashes because maybe some guy forgot to properly turn the right screw, and he forgot to turn the right screw because that day he was tired, and that day he was tired because he drank too much, and he drank too much because he was depressed, and he was depressed because he's going through a divorce, and he's going through a divorce because his wife cheated, and his wife cheated because she met a new guy at the office, and blah, 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 all the way till the Big Bang. So it was probably not evitable, that crash. What exactly was supposed to avoid that crash? Some theoretical idea of justice that say, well, but the good guy is in the plane, so maybe all that chain of events starting from the Big Bang should not happen. It doesn't really make sense. So we invent justice in a kind of irrational way just because we want it to exist, because we feel safer and more protected if it were to exist. But that's not how usually things work, because things work, let's say, from the past to the future. So there is the Big Bang, and the Big Bang is the first cause, and it has a consequence, which has a consequence, which has a consequence, which has a consequence, till today. So when you ask the question why something happened, the answer is because of what happened just before. And you can always go back in time till the Big Bang. So basically the answer to any question is because of the Big Bang. Why is the stock market crashing today? Because of the Big Bang. Of course. So this is the real answer when you look into the past. Then there is something which is called the teleological approach, where you're assuming purpose. So you're assuming that things are going towards a purpose. But of course, there is absolutely no evidence of this. This is most likely a story. A very simple example of this is like if someone says, why does it rain? So the normal interpretation will be because of the Big Bang created the galaxies and they created the stars, which created the planets. Some planets contain water, and sometimes the water becomes steam, and then eventually it gets cold, it becomes water again, and it rains. So it's explained from the past. From the original cause, you explain the phenomena. You explain rain because of how it appeared. It appeared because there are planets and there is water, and those planets go around some suns, and the water gets too hot, and so it evaporates, and then eventually it falls back. So there is rain. But some people may explain it in a teleological way, which of course is a little bit ridiculous and doesn't make sense, but it's still interesting to look at it. So the teleological approach of rain will be it rains to water the plants. That's an idea of purpose. So as if rain existed in order to water the plants. But that doesn't really make sense because rain predates the plant. There first was rain, and because there was rain, plants became possible through evolution. So it's not that there were plants already and suddenly the rain appears to water the plants, which will be a teleological interpretation, which makes no sense. So teleological interpretation is basically we want something to be true, or we believe something to be true, and we assume that the universe works in a way that is going to bring things towards that goal. So we believe that something has to water the plants, so the rain appeared to water the plants. Now that also doesn't make sense because how could there ever have been plants without rain? Plants require rain from day one. So of course, the explanation that the rain appears first is much more logical. The rain had been existing for billions of years, and at some point, some organism takes advantage of it, and the first plants are born. So plants have always experienced rain. There never was a point where plants existed without rain, because rain existed since day one, probably, of Earth, whereas plants maybe took a billion years to exist. But for sure, it's not that the rain appeared in order to water the plants. So in the same way, the justice idea is a teleological idea. It's the idea that things should go toward a purpose. Things should go towards the purpose of more justice for humans. And by the way, why just for humans? What about chickens and pigs and cows and plants? I mean, where is the justice for them? So we have this teleological idea that there should be a justice for humans. But we know that we are born from evolution. We are born from single-cell organisms that evolved into smaller mammals and then bigger mammals, whatever. So we come from evolution, we slowly become humans. So when this justice allegedly started to exist, like when the earth was just a rock with no life, there already was this concept of justice, that one day humans that do good stuff will be protected and humans that do bad stuff will not be protected. It doesn't really make sense. So unless we believe in the theological interpretation, so we say that, well, once human appear, then clearly justice must exist because it's better for humans. But this is like believing that the water appeared later to water the plants, but it's not. The water was already there. And if there was no justice in the early days when we were like small mammals, there probably isn't today. It's not that it suddenly appeared. Now, of course, we created it as human justice to keep our societies united, yes. But is there some kind of absolute universal justice so that the good guy is protected and the bad guy is not, so that we have more control? Probably not. It wouldn't make sense. It would be completely teleological in nature. It will have no reason to exist because all real explanation come from the origin, from the past. So from the Big Bang, events after event after event after event, something happens. So explanations from the origin are usually valid. Explanation that goes towards a goal, that is, it's like this to serve this purpose, are usually wrong. So we know why rain appears, starting from the Big Bang, and then plants appear because there is rain. It's not that there are plants and rain appear because it has the purpose to serve plants to grow better. Teleological interpretation going towards a goal. So justice is completely teleological in nature. It's the idea that, well, yeah, when we were small animals, like small mammals, there clearly was not this justice. It clearly was not there at the Big Bang. It was, but then once we become humans and we live in societies and whatever, then this justice appear to make things more fair, more predictable, to give us more control, to make us feel more protected. It appears to serve a purpose for us. Now, this is of course, ridiculous. The teleological interpretation is always ridiculous. It's just a story. So we built this story to feel more protected. But this is important because very often we feel that this kind of universal justice exists. We feel that in what happens, in when we look at things, we look at ourselves, there has to be some form of justice. Even people that do not believe in God. Of course, if people that believe in God, it's very easy because they see the God agent that protects certain people and doesn't protect other people, reward and punish. But even people that don't believe in God, in some way they still believe in God. They just believe in a God with no agency. They believe in this justice thing, which is kind of a God without agency. It's more like a rule-based God. Instead of being a God that has discretionality, that he can freely make decisions, it's a God that is going to follow specific rules, like a mechanical God, like the laws of physics, some kind of just physical justice. I'm not sure what will be the term. So we have the laws of physics that determine specific phenomena, let's say what happens when two atoms collide, or gravity, or at what speed light travels. And all those originate from the Big Bang. So they have the original cause. They are consequences of the original cause. And then we have this justice, which we kind of expect it to be some sort of supernatural law also that kind of coexist. So as if we have on one end the law of physics, and on another end the laws, let's say, of karma or the laws of justice. So we remove the God here. We have removed the God as agent, but we still kind of believe that we can have at the same time the laws of physics and the laws of karma or the laws of justice or whatever, which also is weird because what happens when they conflict? So it's like, according to laws of physics and causality, from the Big Bang, these planes will crash because of a long chain of events that will make the guy make a mistake when he's turning a screw, because he was drunk the night before, because he was depressed, because his wife is divorcing him, because blah, 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 all the way to the Big Bang. So we have this chain of effect that will produce the result that some good guy is going to be in the plane and the plane will crash. But on the other hand, we will have this law of karma, or law of universal justice, that is supposed to prevent that. But how does it work? How can you have conflicting laws? So the laws of physics is doing this and the law of justice is doing something different. How does it work? Of course, it doesn't make sense. I mean, we have the laws of physics, and starting from the origin, the laws of causality, event after event after event, whatever is today is caused by the Big Bang. So the answer to the question why can always be because of the Big Bang, and not because there has to be justice looking forward, looking in the future, the teleological interpretation. So if there was this kind of natural law of justice, just like the laws of physics, that will also be problematic because those laws of justice will kind of conflict with the laws of physics. Because what if, according to the laws of physics, the plane has to crash and the good guy is sitting there? What is exactly the law of justice supposed to do? It can prevent the plane from crashing, but the laws of physics say that it should crash. So how exactly are the laws of justice going to prevent it? So justice is just an idea. It's the result of our imagination. It's a form of belief in kind of a God in some way, or a story. So it's a God without agency. You have removed the agency from God, but you still believe in the same principle, reward and punishment, for example. Now, yes, there is not a single agent deciding if he's going to reward you or punish you based on if he likes you or not, but still, there is some mechanism that based on your actions is going to protect you or not. And it's not very clear where it resides, where it is located, this law, and how it can operate, especially when it's in conflict with the laws of physics. It doesn't really make sense. So in some way, the idea of justice is really very, very similar to the idea of the belief in God. We have just removed the agency part, but everything stays the same. So a lot of people say that they don't believe in God, but in some way, they just believe in a God without agency. So they kind of still believe. If you believe in this idea of universal justice, you kind of just believe in a God without agency. But if you think about it, you may realize that it's just a story. It doesn't really make sense, and so you can drop the belief. And now you can have much more clarity when you look at things, when you think, etc., etc., etc. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting to start doing bad things, whatever bad means, and never do good things. Of course, consequence still exists. So in the realm of the laws of physics, consequence still exists. I mean, we are animals and we strive to survive. So if you hurt someone, there is a very good chance that they will hurt you, or one of their relatives will hurt you, or one of their friends will hurt you, or you will have a bad reputation, people will not trust you. So consequences, of course, do exist. Consequences are compatible with the laws of physics. So every action has consequence, but those consequences are within the laws of physics. So what you do will have consequence, but it has direct consequence based on the laws of physics. So you can always trace it back to the Big Bang. It's not teleological in the sense that it goes towards some principle of universal justice where you're protected. So you may very well do good things and you will die in the plane crash. Of course, if you do good things to a lot of people, when you're in trouble, probably someone will help you. And if you do horrible things to a lot of people, maybe someone will kill you. That is true. That is perfectly compatible with the laws of physics and the way human and animal societies work. So it's part of evolution and the way our brain operates. We strive to survive. So we remember people that helped us and we remember people that hurt us. And also the rumor can spread. So someone can, let's say you hurt someone, maybe his friend will hurt you. Or you help someone, maybe his friend will help you. Or you will build good or bad reputation. So of course actions have consequences. But they have kind of direct consequences. So starting from the Big Bang, going forward, actions have consequences. And good actions can have good consequences. And bad actions can have bad consequences. But that doesn't mean you get some sort of protection. So the fact that you help people means that people are more likely to help you back. And the fact that you hurt people means that people are more likely to hurt you back. But it doesn't protect you from the plane crash, from the earthquake, or from the cancer. Those are just stories. The idea of the universal justice now that checks, oh, this guy has been nice, let's protect him from the plane crash. This is a story, of course. So there is no protection. So if you believe in justice, you're effectively believing, justice as in some sort of universal justice, you're effectively believing in a God without agency that rewards and punishes. So that's it.